beneficial in the Big Sandy Council was through the 5K or the foot race as a means to raise money. So what we did today is when y'all reached out to us, I reached out to Ricky Campbell. Ricky is a timer. He's with Appalachian Timing, and he's a race director as well. So me and him reached out, and we're going to try to co-present together for y'all today. This is the first time I've worked with Ricky as a presenter. My name is Tony Skeans. I am professionally, I'm a full-time assistant Commonwealth attorney. I'm a prosecutor. I have prosecuted elder abuse and usually elder exploitation cases instead of elder abuse cases. And the last one that I have is one pending right now is an adult service worker who no longer was an adult service worker, who was still pretending to be an adult service worker and was taking her ex-client's meds because she was going out and still helping them because she was the social worker that cared. Don't laugh, it's not. But that's kind of some of the things I do professionally. But for the race world, about 7 years ago, I became involved in the local race scene and started using fundraisers, started using 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and distance races to build not only awareness, but to kind of put some team building in place and to make some money, because they're a good vehicle to make money for fundraising. This is why I'm real excited to present to this group, because, and you'll explain, right now, in 2015, there were 17.1 million road race finishers in the U.S. The average age of the finishers is in the mid to late 30s. Most runners are women. Average household earnings are over $75,000 per year, and the average runner holds a degree that is advanced from the high school diploma, either an associate's, a bachelor's, or a master's. All right, so this is a very lucrative demographic for people to make money with, because they have disposable income, they will travel, and the combination of disposable income, travel, and education means that it becomes real popular for you to go to your tourism boards and your other means of funding to say, we want to pull these type of people in our communities. To kind of narrow the statistics down, whenever you're doing a race and when you're focusing on a race, you need to be focusing on your runners. Your standard runner is going to be a female between 33 and 39 years old who works for a living and is educated. Everybody in this room fits that qualification. Maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, but every one of you, 39. All right. Some of the concerns with using a foot race as a fundraiser is this is turning into a tougher business. We have been on the upswing of the market. And as you can see, that is the number of road race finishers from the 1990 forward. It kind of peaks out in the 2013 year, but we're still seeing, the large number of runners come through. You're still seeing 17 million finishers in 2015. The other thing that is a concern is there's more events. Every year, people are going, hey, I think we'll need to do this. So they're jumping up and they're putting on an event. The difference is, so whenever I was telling this presentation, I thought, how would I recommend to somebody who's entering into this business? How do you go about it? Why? This is a $1.4 billion industry. Those 17.1 million runners spent $1.4 billion last year, 2015, on road races. That is comparative to the ticket revenue of the NFL, and is actually $500 million more than the ticket sales for all the NCAA teams. So can any of y'all do any of those things? Have an NFL team or have an NCAA team? There you go. I can't even afford a ticket to an NFL game. But that you can be part and get your share of that $1.4 billion. Why? This is a team building exercise. Me and Ricky are kind of like weirdos in the business because we tend to work by ourselves. But for those races that are ours, but generally speaking, these are things that should work as a community group or as a small team committee group. This gives that committee something to do. Instead of just having a meeting and saying this is where we're going to go, it gives you something to work for. It's community building, and the fact that you get to become interrelated to other groups, because one of the things that you're going to deal with here is how to get the number of people as you need in your agency, in your event. Awareness building. Very few people probably know in your community that there is an elder abuse council in your community. Suddenly, if you have that public event and you have that 100 people or that 150 people, or let's maybe 300 people running through the center of your downtown location on some Saturday morning or on some Saturday evening, dressed with whatever your theme is, people may, that may be something that we need to be aware of. And it's something to do. If every group I've worked with, whether it's Rotary, Kiwanis, Shriners, Lodge, any of those community groups in my little community, they always have the things that they do that they think everybody knows, but rapidly become that thing that you do in the public is what you become known as, and how that interrelates to how the community relates to you. What races to run? One of my funnest things when I deal with groups, because I'm kind of that guy, when people want to run a race, they call me and say, hey, we're wanting to run a race, we want to run a marathon. And I'm like, no, you don't. So one of the funnest things we like to do, I want to make sure that we know, is kind of talking about our distances. And this is something that we'll kind of go through and talk a little bit about how those work. Your distances are very kind of standard in the race business, but then there's also the room for originality depending upon what your course requires. They are 3Ks, which is about 1.2 miles. Most races are referred to by kilometers, except for your bigger races. A 5K is your normal race distance and is your most popular race. That is generally the one that most groups will come out and run because it's a simple, easy race, and we'll talk more specifically about that. A 8K or a 5-miler is sometimes an event that's run. Those are usually legacy events. 10K is another standard distance that people run, and it's that kind of midway distance between the 5K and the half marathon that you can still draw runners from both. The half marathon is a 13.1 mile race. The marathon is a 26.2 mile race, and then there's other distances or odd distances, whether it's like a 6.6, 6.1. Your race in
6.55.
6.5 miles, or it's that's 6 point, which is a quarter marathon, or something that's like a 15 miler, or something that is just course specific, or even something over a 26.2, which is usually an ultra marathon. The most common race is the 5K, and generally speaking, every year there's more races, more events. The second most common race is the 10K, followed by a half marathon. Generally speaking, it is best to think about those three races for any race you want to run. Outside of that, you're getting maybe more involved or maybe too specific. The 5K. The 5K is the most popular race for runners and walkers. A 5K is a shorter distance, it's 3.1 miles. You can always allow somebody to run that race, or you can allow them to walk that race. By running or walking that race, you're basically only spending about an hour, hour and a half commitment that morning or that evening from your race volunteer crew. It's something that you can kind of do with a limited number of volunteers. Realistically, a good 5K can be ran with proper course management with about 10 volunteers across the course. In smaller venues, the only problem with a 5K is there's a limited profit potential. And Ricky will talk a little bit more about the economics of how the economics of the races and how they come together. But generally speaking, think about this just like any other event that you're selling tickets to. For every time somebody shows up, you make money. For every runner, you're going to spend X number of dollars to get them through the gate. You'll have a budget per runner that you're spending. Generally speaking, 5K fees are $20 to $25, sometimes as low as $15. So it becomes real hard to make real big money on a race unless you just get lots and lots of people. And that's kind of hard to do in kind of the competitive market that some of us are in, especially in small rural counties. The 10K is kind of the odd man out in the races, because a lot of times you'll find that if somebody's choosing to run a 10K, they would probably prefer to run a half marathon. But it's one of those that most 5Kers aren't going to step up to it because it's more than they feel comfortable trying to run. It's still easy to control the course. You don't really have that big of a course to worry about. You only got 6.2 miles to keep your eyes on. And you can run it with 10 to 15 volunteers depending on course maintenance. Again, it's only dependent on how you do it. If you run it as a run, it's about an hour and a half commitment. If you run it as a run walk, expect about 2 hours to 2 hours and a half commitment out of your group. What I always recommend to local groups is that if they come to me and they say, I want to run a 5K, my answer is, okay, that's great, let's do a 5K, but let's throw a 10K distance in there as well. And let's make the 10K distance a run. And this kind of gives you the best of the both worlds, because your 5K is a very local market. A lot of times people will travel for a 5K, but probably no more than what I found between, about 30 minutes is about the distance people will travel. And it's there's kind of this nice, most people will run a 5K in less than 30 minutes or less. That's about how far people will travel for it. 10Ks are about the same thing. Most people run a 10K in 60 minutes or less. That's about as far as they'll drive for it. If you run your 5K, 10K in this mechanism, run it as a 5K run walk, a 10K run, you're basically having the same commitment from your group as just running a 5K run walk, but you have the potential to draw more people. And more importantly, people will be willing to spend a little bit more money to run a 10K, and you don't really have to spend much more money to get them through the door. The half marathon is the standard distance event. That standard in that this is the one that most people choose to run. This is the one that most women run. This is the one that is very, very popular in that exact runner demographic. It's something that a lot of people can do very easily. Everybody in this room at some point in your life could have trained and run a 13.1 course half marathon if you haven't already. Absolutely, every one of you could. If you're shaking your head no, see me afterwards, we'll work it out. It'll be great. And what happens is this is the event that a lot of people will focus in on and say, I want to do this. You'll see this in like shapes groups and Foxy fitness groups. This will become one of those things that like female fitness groups will focus in on as their capstone event for the year. I'm a huge fan of half marathons for groups because realistically it requires a bigger commitment of time and energy, but the profit potential is substantially more. The normal race fee for a half marathon is around $45, anywhere between cheap at $45 to $85, $95 per runner. The cost per runner does not go up much higher than a 5K or a 10K. You can spend some good money on it, but you can usually keep your cost per runner down to under $20. So, whenever a runner makes you $30, it's easy to make money. So, and I've ran small half marathons that still turned a profit even though a 5K or a 10K would have. The only real problem with the half marathon is that you have to have a committed group of volunteers. You have to have 25 to 30 people on race day. And that doesn't necessarily have to be out of your group. That could be other community groups that you pull into it. Whether or not you pull your Rotary Club, your Lions Club, your Kiwanis Club, your high school track teams, your high school groups that need to have community service, your nursing home groups, those sorts of things to get you extra volunteers, but you have to have that ability to organize and coordinate your volunteers that morning. The other thing that really comes into the half marathon is there is tourism potential out the wazoo on these. People will generally speaking travel 2 hours for a half marathon that they want to come run. A 2-hour trip for a 7 o'clock race or an 8 o'clock race means that a lot of times you can justify spending the night in a hotel, that event, and it becomes more of a getaway with that being part of the event tourism. That you can kind of go to your tourism board and say, we want to do this, will you help us with publicity or PR or medals or something? and that is a huge source of revenue and income to help support a race. Win. One of my least favorite things to do when a group comes talk to me is they're always says, we want to run a 5K. Okay, that's great. When? 2 weeks from now. That's not going to happen. All right. If you go ahead, have at it, but you're going to, unless you just really like to fail, please don't do that. Figure out when. Look at your community. If you're going to run a 5K, you're going to run a 10K, you're going to run a half marathon, figure out a time. Figure out what time you're going to run this event. If you're thinking about starting a new event, the earliest I would be thinking about doing an event this year is October, November, December. You need to be thinking that far out, the earliest. And in fact, we're here in June. Now would be a great time to stake your date for a 2017 race, sometime next spring or fall or summer. Most races are run from year to year. They're run on the same day or the same Saturday or the same Friday or the same Sunday. So it becomes real important not to get in the way of an established race, because runners are going to go to the established race. They're not going to come to your race. Google race calendars when you get home and find your race calendars for your area. Every little community or every region has a race calendar that most of the local runners will look at. John's Run and Walk Shop runs one in the Bluegrass area and generally speaking, they're everywhere in Kentucky, but it's generally the Bluegrass. Appalachian Time and Tri-State Racer basically work East Kentucky, Southern Ohio, West Virginia. Swag Sports Shoes out of Louisville appeared to be the one that popped up for Louisville. I don't run Louisville races, but that was the one that popped up when I Googled it. And they appeared to have the majority of the Louisville races on it. It's one of those things that, and what's on one calendar doesn't necessarily have to be on the other calendar, because those are usually things that people add their races to. So figure out what calendars cover your area, and then figure out what weekends are good or available. Again, kind of keeping that in mind, that people will travel 30 minutes for a 5K, an hour for a 10K, 2 hours for a half marathon. Oops, did I jump? Okay, I hope I did it. All right. Did I jump? All right, I thought I did. All right, here's why it's important to check local calendars. I checked the local calendar coming down here for a June event. There are 64 events in Central Kentucky in June. There are 64 running events between now and the 1st of July in Central Kentucky in June. So you need to be planning months or years out. Figure out the hole in your local calendar and then stake it. If you're going to run a race next, especially if it's on a holiday weekend or something that's a big weekend, get out there now. If you're lucky enough to be in a local community that doesn't have anything on the July 4th weekend, that would be an amazing weekend to grab something on, or Memorial Day weekend, Father's Day weekend, Mother's Day weekends, Labor Day weekends. If you don't, that may be a weekend to stake it out on. People are looking for something to do. Where do you run your race? That's something that you're going to have to kind of judge by your local community. If you're not comfortable figuring out where, find the guy that runs down the side of the road and befriend him. Okay? That becomes your new best friend. If you're not a runner, find you one to be part of your committee, because you're going to need you one. Because they know how to run in your town. Figure out your town, whether or not you're going to run it on a state highway or try to run it on a state highway. Generally speaking, you're not allowed to, but it depends on how visible you are, if that makes any sense. Technically, you're not allowed to, but if you're not real visible, nobody notices. If you have to run part of your race on a state highway. Not telling you to violate the state highway, but violate the state highway. It's our road. We paid for it. And I have big politics on that issue. Use a state park. Our state park system is an amazing resource. Use it. If you happen to have a rail trail locally or something, a trail system as part of your state park, use it. There's a permitting process in place, it's a 7% user fee, and it's well worth it. Every event I can run in a state park, I do. Local park. A lot of the parks in the bigger cities, local parks are amazing options, especially putting some of it in. Part of that is runner control. If you get somebody in a park running in an area that's pedestrian traffic only, it really helps you with your volunteers and your groups because you don't have to worry about them getting ran over. Trail systems, whether or not it's a state park system or part of a local trail system, consider using it. Do your course design by foot. Don't just go to the mapping tools. Don't go out and find, this is why you need a local runner on your committee if you don't have one. Don't just go to a mapping tool thing and say, well, this looks like a good event, I'm gonna run this. Whenever you pick your course, set your course, figure out kind of what you want to run, and then go out and walk it. If you're going to be the race director, go out and walk it. You know, make it an event for the committee. Walk through the area. Drive through the area. Get on a bike and ride through the area. Get really comfortable with your course, because at that point you start identifying, hey, this is a choke point, or hey, this is a traffic concern point. This is where a car could run over one of my runners. This is a point where they may not know which way to turn. And that kind of helps you figure out where you're going to put your runners and your volunteers at in your groups. In most small towns, if people are running events in your town, there is probably a general course that everybody uses. I have found that there is, in my little small town of Paintsville of 3,000 people plus or minus, you know, there's a course that everybody uses, and then everybody else tries to make one, and I always will go around behind them and take down their signs because they never remember to get their signs down. So, again, when you walk it, you're going to have to identify items in your course. In every course, you're going to have these issues: traffic conflict points, where your foot traffic is going to have to deal with road traffic. Where you have your turn points, last thing you want to do is have a runner get lost. It happens. It happens in big races. It happens in professional races. But you don't want to run a race that, you know, nobody knows where to go to. And you got to remember, a lot of times, it's just because it makes sense to you, it probably doesn't make sense to that guy that's never been in your town before, that is trying to run really, really fast, really, really hard, and he's not quite lucid at the point that he's making those decisions. So you got to, it's not only here's where the turn point is, but you kind of got to put the gigantic arrows that say, hey, here's your turn point. Yeah, hey, slap it. And then you kind of figure out there where your water stops need to be and where your water stops can be. You know, where are those areas where it'll be safe to stick 2 or 3 volunteers for an hour or 2? Where are those areas that you need signage? And more importantly, what signs do you need and how you're going to go about getting them? Once you figured out what you're going to do, then go map it on your mapping software. Whether it's Map My Run or Google, I use both. This is a Google map that I actually use as part of the Christmas half marathon I run down in Paintsville. And it's a interactive map that the runners can then kind of, if you wanted to come check it out, you can kind of go through and check each of the segments of it to figure out what's on that and kind of a good general course description of what to expect. It's really cool. If you're familiar with Google Maps, kind of play around with it. You need somebody that has some tech savvy, but it's a nice way to kind of show people this is where you're at and this is what you're supposed to do. How? One of the nice things about presenting to a group of this nature is you're already going to be thinking about this event differently. Your event is not about being punished. A lot of people, when people think of running, they think back in high school, back when you played on a sports team or you had PE. When you did something bad, you took a lap. Anybody ever take a lap? We took a lap, all right. Runners, we take pride in the concept that your punishment is our sport. And I've seen t-shirts that says your punishment's our sport. This is a party to runners. If you're ever been, if one of the little slogans is that if going out and running 13 miles with 15,000 people is your ideal of a party, then you may be a runner. So you need to get out of the thought process of this is a punishment event. This is a fun event. This is a party. Figure out how to make your event fun. How to make your event distinctive interesting, theme specific, and how to make it just something that everybody will be like, that was a good 2 hours of my life well spent, and a good $30. And I had a good time. Good food. Good food is one of those secret areas that people have yet to pick up on the big races. And everybody here can outcompete every major league marathon in the United States with food. Guaranteed. I have never had a good meal after a big race, but I've had some great meals after a small race. And a lot of times, you know, if you have that option of having a good, if you have those people that know how to cook, that know how to make desserts, that, you know, that can lay out, you know, vegetable soup, that could very well be what makes somebody choose to run your event. Music is another option. Most events have music present. A lot of the bigger events are going towards having it more of an after party style after the run. Look at your local groups, look at your local artist groups, and see which artist wants to help you do a free concert for 150 people some Saturday morning. You know, I guarantee you there's that guy somewhere that is just looking for a group of 150 people to play a guitar in front of, even if it's just one guy with a guitar. I mean, it's a good opportunity for you to sell a party to somebody that needs exposure. Every event needs good swag, and Ricky has some amazing, so I'm going to let him go into the detail there whenever it's his turn. But one of the things that's probably your best money spent is in medals. Medals are what turns the gimmick. I'm an experienced runner. In other words, I go to a race for the experience, and the medals go in a box. I am a very small minority because most runners have gigantic swag walls. Or not most runners, but a lot of runners have gigantic swag walls. It's all about the medal, because that's how they remember the event. So medals is a great place to spend your money. All right, and again, Ricky has some amazing swag. T-shirts, that's your standard swag. Everybody has a T-shirt, and if you're a runner, you have a closet full of them. You know, so if you're going to rely upon your T-shirt to be your swag, figure out how to make your T-shirt amazing or distinctive or cool or special, or invest in a nice tech shirt or something that is more something that people will wear. And part of that is you're probably not going to be able to stick sponsors on a really cool piece of runner gear that you want somebody to wear, because that kind of gobs it up. And most importantly, figure out how to budget this event and how to make your money. I like making money. That's what I do. I love making money with events. If I can make $1 on an event, then I felt I've had a successful event. If I have a great event and lose money, I still feel okay, but it feels much better when I have money in my pocket at the end of the day. So budget, budget, budget. Don't be cheap, but look for that alternative way to, that alternative thing that somebody else may not have thought about to cut corners and save a penny. Again, this is a $1.4 billion industry. There are plenty of people out there that will help you. There are timer services, event planners, publicity services, and food service. Some races that I run, I contract out some of the things. Food service is my biggie. I love to contract out. I try to find a good group to work with and contract out the food service. Say, you know, for every runner that shows up that runs my race, I'll share my fee with you by X number of dollars. And you can sell your food to those people that don't. They're just there for spectators. And a lot of times that helps, gets a local group, makes another fundraiser, pulls your more volunteers in. And it's, you know, it's a good way to engage another group in society. The best money spent, but usually the hardest thing for people to get over is timer services. If I am buying help in a race and I can afford it, timer services is the first place I spend the money, because that is invaluable to running a good coordinated race. I have run races with local groups being the timer services and doing the timing themselves, and it's a royal pain. If you've never done it, if you're not a runner, you've not got a track background or something, don't even try it. Spend the money, get a timer service. Because you're a broke nonprofit, we were all broke nonprofits. If you can't afford timer services, a good group to maybe reach out to is check with your local track teams and see if you can pull that track coach that may have his own timing machine in as a race committee volunteer. I know groups that have done that. It works okay. It's not as good as a timer service, but it works. It is really good to have 3 to 5 people on your committee that you can really count upon. You can do it by yourself if you're a control freak or that's just the way you are. But it's best to have 3 to 5 people in your group. That way you can spread out the workload. Especially if you have one person that knows how to maintain them and coordinate them well and delegate properly. Then the last thing, and probably the most important thing in any race, especially a new race, is building publicity and word of mouth. The same things that makes people, that they're going to say, how am I going to spend that Saturday morning? Why am I going to spend $30 on this event instead of $30 on that event? Or why am I not just going to sleep in? How do we get them out there? You got to build excitement. How do you do that? I have found that traditional media is a waste of money in races. You know, if you can talk to your local newspapers, you can talk to your local radio stations, your local TV stations, and get them to give it to you, yes, absolutely. Take it, it's free, it helps you. But for runners, most of the runners find their information off the internet, off of runner calendars, race calendars, Facebook pages, web pages of the events, so that is where your money is well spent. If I have a race that has a cool medal and I really want to get people's attention, I post that medal, and I may post it, and Ricky liked it yesterday when I did it, I may post it to runner groups that I know and ask for feedback. And next thing you know, I've got everybody telling me how to design their medal for their race that they're coming to in 2 months. And it's an amazing thing. I've done that for races. I have design feedback times. Whenever I start designing a medal for a race, I'll post the ideals up and let people comment and change the medal. And I've actually did a 180 one time because of how people reacted to the medal that I was preparing for the race. They didn't like it. And some people liked it, some people didn't. They didn't like it. It wasn't what they wanted in their race. So I changed my medal that year because they wanted something different. And it became, and once they start giving you advice on how to make your medal, they feel a little bit engaged in your race, part of your race. And you can do that on Facebook. You can do that on Twitter. You can do that on Snapchat, I think. I'm not really good at Snapchat. But you need to figure out how to do that. Get on social media and make it work. Oh. And this is me. You have me at the bottom of your event list. That's how to get me if you have any questions after work. That's my cell phone number, my email address. It's my personal email address, not my state email address. Facebook or Snapchat.
I can't read it.
That's why we printed it out. So, I know, it's not really good. Anthony Skeans. Everything I have is Anthony Skeans except for my Snapchat, which was Run the Lawyer Dad. So it works very well. All right. With that, I want to turn it over to the very competent Ricky Campbell. The reason I reached out to grab Ricky in this event is because I do community organization more than I do, and the way I do community organization is through running events. Ricky does running events, and as far as the nuts and bolts of running events, he probably has more experience than about anybody that I work with in Eastern Kentucky and a lot of the people in Central Kentucky as far as running events. He began promoting and doing his own events in high school when he was 17. While he was in the process of going through high school and college, he began working for the timing group, set out to form his own timing group 2 years ago now?
Probably 1.5.
1.5 years ago, and he's already at the point where if you want Ricky, you need to start booking him for next year. That's where he's at. You know, he's running 3 teams at any time, and by far and away the best value for a timing group that I have found.
I'm gonna go ahead and pass out.
All right, it's all you.
My swag.
Okay, so like he said, my name is Ricky Campbell. I'm the owner of a timing company located in Huntington, West Virginia, but we do time a lot of races in eastern Kentucky. We go to Pikeville, I would say 2 to 3 times a month, which is a big city in Kentucky that I can think of. Like I said, I'm going to kind of talk to you about the logistics of putting on a race. I'm going to talk about myself a little bit, kind of give you a simple guide, step-by-step, how-to put on a race. And then at the end, I'm going to kind of show you an example of the money that can be made if you do it right. So a little bit about me, I'm 25 years old. I am a student. I am studying physical therapy at a school called Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia. I am a senior, technically. I finish up next May. I began race directing when I was 17. I was in high school. I was in an English class, and the teacher wanted us to put on a community project. So I came up with a 5K. At that time, a few months ahead of the class, one of my teammates and friends got shot in a hunting accident and got killed. So the 5K was in his name, and the money that came out of the 5K went into a scholarship fund that is still going on today. We actually just gave out a scholarship in his name a month ago, so it's still ongoing, 8 to 9 years. Like I said, I began putting on races when I was 17, and since then I've put on 26. My first one, 25 people. So I had no idea what I was doing at the time. Last fall on Thanksgiving Day, I put one on, same city, same location. Known now because I've got a lot into it. We had over 500 people. So it takes time, and I'm going to kind of motivate you a little bit to not give up if you don't have a successful race to begin with. I run myself quite a bit. I've done 19 marathons, 18, 19, I've lost count, and I've done the Boston Marathon 3 times. So I kind of got a little bit of physical therapy going, race timing, putting on races, and running myself. So I do have a lot of experience in this field. So what does it take to put on a race? You did kind of talk about the who, what, why, and all that. But to put on a successful race, you do have to have the motivation and the want to do it. You just can't come up to somebody and say, I want to put on a 5K in 2 weeks. You won't be successful. Granted, it is possible, but I would not recommend it. You need to have a good cause. So I don't know exactly the organization that you might be a part of, but if you have a good cause, a good reason, people will want to go to that event. If I want to put on a 5K to make money for myself, no one's going to want to come to that event. So if it goes to an animal shelter, a scholarship fund, elder abuse, people see that as a good cause, and they will be like, well, I can see myself spending $30 to do that event to help out that. And lastly, I think a good thing that you need to put on an event is a willingness to learn along the way. Because like I said, in my first ever event, I had 25 people. I had no idea what I was doing. But each time you put on an event, you find something that can be better. Even to this day, I put on a race. My last one was back close to Valentine's Day. Something happened, and I learned from it, and next time I won't make that same mistake. So even today, even with 26 races, I still make mistakes. So don't hit yourself hard if you do. So something that I also think you need is something that makes your race stand out. Because you don't want to just be that 5K in town that doesn't have anything special about it. The big thing that he mentioned, and I've kind of got him passing, I don't know who has him, is the medal. In my experience, I have done it all, it seems like. I've done a 5K, 10K, I had a team competition in a race. Just kind of mentioning somebody is the medal is what gets people to the event. If they finish and they get that medal and it's cool looking, you don't want to get a cheap little medal. I mean, don't go all out if you don't have the budget, but definitely spend the money. If you have somebody that can design, that's good with graphics, definitely hit them come up, use the skills that they have, because I did not design that medal. I did not design any of those passing out, but a friend of mine did, and she did an awesome job. So hit those people up and come up with that medal, because that's what's going to make your event stand out. Other ideas, you can have tech T-shirts, you can have cool like prizes, giveaway items. You can have raffle items, but also play with the date. Like he mentioned, a few holidays you can have them. But a cool ideas that I think that can play into a 5K theme that can get people is zombie runs, Halloween night, Christmas lights. So if you have a city park that has Christmas lights up, have a 5K go through that. So as they run on that path, they see the Christmas lights. It plays with the theme. An event that we just did about a month and a half ago, it's called a naked run. You don't actually run naked. No, you don't. The point of the race is that you do the 5K without any technology, no music, no ability to keep your time. When you sign up to do the race, you submit a time. So let's say I sign up to do an event and I say I'm going to finish it in 20 minutes. When I finish, if I finish in 21 minutes, my official time is 1 minute. It's kind of like a prediction run. And the big thing about that race is that anyone can win. So even if the person in last place finishes in 50 minutes, but if they guessed 50:01, they'll win it. So that's a good, think of ideas like that to get people to your event.
Ricky, if you have somebody design your medals, who cuts them or does them or whatever?
You can, a lot of the metal companies is the same. They'll all basically go to out of the USA to make the medals. If you want to contact me, I can send you my link. He has his own company, but like I said, it's all pretty much the same. The big thing is, if you have a friend that is good with logos, graphics, hit them up, and
then
they'll,
send it off and it'll get cut.
yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't know who made ours. They were great.
They did just that purple ribbon like that. And it was beautiful. Wasn't it, Leslie? They were great. I don't know who made them, but I guess, did Steve design them?
No, his friend.
Okay,
No, his friend did.
they made this, the big purple ribbon like for the elder abuse.
Yep, the ribbon is also a big piece of the medal. Not only can you put the date, the city, kind of make it unique, you can also put sponsor logos. So if you have a company that wants to give your event a few $1,000, you can say, hey, I'll put your logo not only on the t-shirt, not only online, but also on the medal ribbon. So to them, it's kind of an added bonus. So now I'm going to kind of talk to you about a step-by-step guide. This is not in any means a full guide. This is kind of just some main points that I thought about as I was making these slides. First, you need to go to your city hall, city police, and double check to see what they make you have. From my experience, each city wants something different. Some cities allow you to paint on the road. Some cities don't want that at all. Some cities make you pay a fee. Some don't. Again, just go to your city hall, talk to them, see if first if they allow 5Ks, and second, see what needs to be done to get on the schedule. And then once you get a date, location, and I guess it's city approval, come up with a name, make it catchy. Like I said, come up with a good idea. Zombie runs, naked runs, anything like that. And then come up with the details, how much it costs, what you want to give away, food, all of that. Just kind of make it a list, and so as you complete it, you can check it off. Once you get all that done, you need to begin advertising as soon as you can. Do it online, like you said, Google race calendars, put it on all of them that you can, don't just limit it to one. If you have an event in Lexington, put it in Lexington, Louisville, Pikeville, Huntington, Cincinnati. If you have a good event, people will come. And also Facebook, social media, it doesn't cost anything. So I like Facebook a lot. Next, you want to get sponsors. This can be a little tricky if you have not done so. Basically, you want to tell them specific ways that you can promote their business in exchange to get some type of financial help. Not only financial help, you can also get just help with anything. They can donate food, they can donate trophies, anything in exchange to save you a little bit of money and to help out the business. Once you get that, you need to come up with a budget and then begin looking at what type of prizes you want to give out. You can do all kinds of things. You don't need to just go online and buy cheap trophies if you don't want to. You can do pottery, medals, you can do trophies, you can give out t-shirts to people who win, jackets. Again, the main thing with getting people to an event is coming up with something that somebody else didn't. So I'm not going to give you all my ideas, but I will help along the way if you have any questions. And I'm always game to listen to any ideas that people have, because it might be successful and I might actually implement them in my own races that I put on. So like I said, trophies, medals, t-shirts. If you can, shop local. I will tell you that as you begin posting your race online, you will get a lot of spam email. I get, I'd say, an email each day of a t-shirt company located in Washington, located in Texas, wanting to quote me t-shirts. I'm a big fan of shopping local, and most of the time local people will give you the better deal anyway. Not only that, they'll help you design the t-shirt, and a lot of the times they already have the sponsor logos, so you can just send them a list of what logos you want on the back, and they can come up with it. So that, and then along the way, continue to advertise gyms, running shops, running clubs if you have them in your city. Again, continue to just annoy people on Facebook. He mentioned the race route. The best way, like I said, find somebody who runs it. If you don't have an established 5K, 10K half in your town, find somebody that runs, has a GPS watch, has a little wheel. They have measuring wheels that help you make it accurate. Because the last complaint you want to get is that it's off. I've timed a few 5Ks that ended up being 5 miles because people had no idea what it meant. So get help and have somebody, if you don't know how to do it, help you out with that. If you do not have a timing group, you can ask your track coach, cross country coach, because usually they do have the equipment to do so. But I will say, I'm in that business, so I'm not going to say not to use them, but it is the best money you can spend. It gives you a stress-free day with the results, timing, sound system, race clock. You get finish line inflatables. You get all the cool stuff that people like, that a local track coach won't have. So it can get a little pricey depending on the company that you use. We at my company try to minimize it as low as we can. The company that I was with, when I began timing, I was with a timing group that is almost double what we charge. And that's why, one of the main reasons why I left. So you want to reach out to a few timing groups. So if you have an event in Louisville, check the Louisville groups. I don't know of any because I don't live in Louisville. If you live in Lexington, check Lexington. They have a few. Huntington has a few. Just check them and get quotes and see what services they have that will help your event the best. And then on race day, make sure you have enough volunteers. I would highly tell you to make a checklist, because I know you won't sleep the night ahead of it, but I know I don't, even to this day. Even with 26 events under my belt, I still do not sleep ahead of the event thinking, what did I miss out? What's gonna happen? So just come up with a checklist and make sure that it's all done ahead of the event. So like I mentioned at the beginning, what can you expect on a first year event? My experience, I had 25 people. Was I bummed? A little bit, but we still made money enough to give out a $500 scholarship. So it wasn't a complete bust. my thought process is if you can get at least 100 people to your event in a first annual event, it's a success. If you lose money, so be it. I'm going to show you a financial example here in a little bit that's not always a bad thing. But you got to think that if you get 100 people at your event and you put on a good, successful event, those 100 people will go tell their family, their friends, running clubs about your event, so that next year it's going to be on their must-to-do list to come back to it. So don't just focus on money you make and the number of people that you get to begin with. Focus on making it a good event, making it established so that people want to continue to come back to it. Basically, I think I just said that. And like I said, timing groups, you have many options. I kind of listed ones close to us. So we got us, we got a company called Three Way Racing. It's located in Lexington, as is John's Run and Walk Shop. Because I'm not gonna bug you all if you have an event in Louisville to use a company out of West Virginia, but I would like you all to use these services because they will make your event better. So like I said, I've mentioned all of that. I have a link, but I don't know if we have Wi-Fi, so I'll just leave that alone. If you want to look at our site, it's aptiming.com. You can actually make an account with us, and you can host your event on the public calendar. It doesn't cost anything. So that's one way to advertise your race. And I mentioned most timing companies give you race clocks, sound system to announce people as they finish. The one big thing that people love is that when they finish a 5K, even if they're in dead last, that they can hear their name on the sound system. It's kind of like it's a motivation to keep coming back and keep running. I know it is to me when I hear my name and city at a big event. Okay, so lastly, I wanted to talk to you about a financial example. Because like I said, you may not make a lot of money in your first year event. So in this example, I am wanting to put on a half marathon, and the fee to sign up is $50. Okay, and let's say you get 100 people to that event, so in my opinion, that's a good event. If you check on the left-hand side, this is just estimates of what you would pay. So a city makes you pay a fee, medals, t-shirts, trophies, timing, food, and then just miscellaneous fees that pop up that you don't think about when you make your budget. Then you have your income on the right-hand side. If you have 100 people sign up at $50 a piece, that's a guarantee of $5,000 of income. Some people donate money, and if you can get some sponsors, that also helps. So in this example, you make a net profit of about $3,600. Now that's a lot of time, a lot of commitment to only make $3,600. But let's say that it was successful, and let's say 2 years have passed, and this is now a third-year event. People have told their friends, running clubs, family about the event. Not only that, you also see an increase in sponsorship money. So this is now year 3, same half marathon, same location. The expenses will go up some, just because you have to buy additional things to amount to the new numbers, but also the expenses will go down. If you check back, medals and t-shirts cost a little bit more if you only buy 100. So as you buy in bulk, the price goes down. So again, this is just an example. It's not an exact number, but a medal went down 10 to 6, and that's about accurate. But in this example, this is your third-year event, and this time you get 500 people. You will expend about $87.50, and your income, your registrations, 500 people at $50 a piece would net you $25,000. Donations could go up, and like I said, sponsorship money could go up. With this example, you can make a net of almost $25,000. Doing the same amount of work, same venue, same location. It's just you put on a successful event and people want to come back. So you might get a little bummed if you do put on an event. Let's say next May, and you get 80 people. You might feel like it's a waste of time, you won't make the money. My suggestion is just not give up. Keep finding ways, unique ways to get the audience, get the running community involved with it. Come up with that wow idea, whether it be a medal, a specific themed event, and just keep pushing it. And I think that's about it. Do y'all have any questions?
Can you email that?
Yeah.
Just Stacy Terry.
I have a question. I know like with mountain biking, they have point series. Do you all do that as far as running with
Do I know?
point series types run, like to earn points, like when you compete to earn points?
Like if you do specific races, do you get points?
Mm-hmm, like for other races that actually hold like
Yeah,
point series type
yeah, that's
thing.
kind of what, that medal that combines into one, that's kind of like how that is. But instead of points, it's cumulative time.
Is that what they call it now? I don't know what they call it for runners.
It's just, it's a series event.
Right.
So it's a few races in one. If you finish so many races, you get, some series do by points, like you said,
Right.
some of them do by time.
So, could you like combine your race with somebody else's,
If
like
they
in
want
a
to-
series type thing? And
Yeah, I would
Is it better?
highly recommend that actually, because you can come up with a cool medal idea, you can come up with a cool giveaway item, that if you finish all of the events, you get this. So it's kind of another way to attract people. Anyone else?
Do you have to, like your timing, you have to come in so many minutes or whatever, does that qualify you to get to a bigger race, like the Boston Marathon and things like that?
That's honestly only pertains to a few events like the Boston Marathon. A local 5K, you don't need to get any specific time to qualify to do anything that I know of. There might be some exceptions. I know they have a half marathon now in San Diego that you have to have a specific time to get to. In Boston, and I think NYC and Chicago, it helps if you can get a fast time. But a local event, no.
So we couldn't promote it as if you come in with so much time, you could go to like the next level race.
Definitely, if you could own a full marathon or a half, definitely. And with that, you'd want to get the route certified. I'm not into that business, but I can kind of point you into somebody that can, because it has to be certified so that it's 100% accurate, so that the people in Boston know that the people actually ran a specific time on that distance. So that would only pertain to a half and a full marathon.
Okay.
But we like to keep the clocks open as long as we can. So if we have somebody finishing a long time, they still get the feeling and recognition of finishing the event.
Because we had one 5K where we actually had participants from the nursing home. And they came in wheelchairs and walkers, and they had their oxygen, and it was just a really neat event.
Yeah.
We had them circumvent the race, and they just went around the block and come back, but hey.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like to keep finish lines open a long time, but I
Yeah.
kind of feel like if you put in the time and the effort to do the event, that you should at least feel the same as the individual who finishes in 20 minutes.
Mhm.
So that's my opinion.
But you finished something, you accomplished.
Tony, is your track certified there in Paintsville?
No, I don't have, as far as I know, there's no certified, I think the only certified course in Eastern Kentucky is Hatfield and McCoy.
Huntington is.
Well, Huntington's not in Eastern Kentucky.
Not annexed yet.
We don't have it, that is probably the next step in a couple of the courses I run. I run more theme races that are more about the experience than really about the time. Huh? Do a naked 5K. Do more about the experience and about the time. So as long as I'm within, I have a very good, like the 5K course there is actually dead on in Paintsville. It's never been certified, but it's been mapped out by hand. The half marathon courses in town are not. They're based upon GPS, which can vary plus or minus, 10, 15 foot every time you do it. So.
Well, my last question is, if we hire you as the timer, that naked thing, do you
So Ricky, how is that working?
You don't know how many questions and emails we get of people who actually think it means, but I mean, that's a way to attract people, because people say, what is this?
Yeah.
So they look into it. But no, they actually do have naked events, like actual,
Naked events.
just the,
What are you doing that?
no, that's not, I haven't seen anything look cool.
No, not as long as we got law enforcement watching.
Well, you know, and wrap, any other questions before we wrap this up? We'll let you generate, all right. As I always say, is that one of the definitions of, one of the people always ask me growing up, you know, what's the difference between nude and naked? Is nude is when you don't have any clothes on, is naked is when you're nude and you're having a good time. Sorry. There you go. Any other questions? Because there's nobody coming and getting us off this middle.
My husband, Troy Hearn, told me to tell you hi.
Oh, very good. Tell Troy I said hi.
Okay, I will.
Very good.